Welcome to our next episode where we test different handguns and see how well they conceal carry. We've done a lot of these videos now, but this week we wanted to do something a little different. Here we have this integrated Springfield Echelon with a smaller slide and a larger frame. In this video, we're going to be touching on topics like comfort, concealability, and effectiveness. So when it comes to concealability, your holster is gonna have the biggest impact on your experience. And the holster we are using is the T-Rex Arms Sidecar 2.0. A note about this holster is we got this for free for the video. They did not tell us anything specific to say about it, and we're not sending them this video early for them to review. So jumping into this holster, this has a really nice pin system that allows the spare mag holder to rotate around your body, be a lot more comfortable. With this pin, you can move the entire attachment up or down, gives you some ride height adjustment. Another thing that's really great is T-Rex offers a lot of attachments for this. So they have cuff carriers, rifle mag carriers, tourniquet holders, a lot of really great accessories for concealed carry. And it's one of the things that really sets them apart from the competition. And it's one of the things I really like about this system. Another thing that's really nice is this really aggressive wing. This is gonna push the gun into your body, making it a lot easier to conceal carry. As a whole, this holster does a really good job aiding in concealability, pushing everything inward and keeping it really tight up against your body. And to keep in mind, some of the issues we have with this setup are gun related and not necessarily holster related. So while this holster does a lot for concealed carry, this is just a really big gun. And you really can't get around size when you are concealed carrying. The larger the gun is, the more issues you're really just gonna have. So what we have here is the Springfield Echelon full-size frame. This gives you a 17 round capacity, which is gonna make it a little bit harder to conceal carry. What's gonna happen is the edge of this gun is gonna be printing through your t-shirt. And what's really nice about Appendix is this keeps the gun center of your body, which gives you as much room as possible to hide the gun. If this was strong side, you'd have a really hard time concealing this large grip, but Appendix is gonna give you the most advantage possible when you're trying to conceal a full-size handgun. And unfortunately, no matter what setup I did with this, I just found that I was still printing in a t-shirt. Obviously, in a jacket or a hoodie, you can't even notice this gun. But for me, I wear tighter fitting t-shirts, and I could just see the edge of this frame peeking right through my t-shirt. But with that, I found shifting the whole gun a little bit to the left and putting 12 o'clock with the slide and not on the pin helped a lot with printing in a t-shirt. It was just a little bit more uncomfortable to carry this gun because the way the spare mag holder is. So it's a little bit of a toss-up. If you want less printing and more discomfort, you can shift it. But if you want more comfort and more printing, you can shift it to the right. Unfortunately, this is just a large setup, and no matter where you move it, it is kind of inconvenient. And on top of it being really big, I just noticed this gun being really heavy. This weight was really noticeable when I was carrying this setup with the Arrowhead joggers. These joggers are just much more relaxed, and the more weight I threw on it, the more that interior belt wanted to sag. And while it was more comfortable, I found myself shifting the pants up quite a bit, almost like the weight of the gun was just a little bit too much for the belt setup. However, with the Core Essentials belt and the jeans, it was just a lot more comfortable to carry this gun. It was much more rigid, and while I still noticed the size, I really didn't notice the weight as much. I'm gonna give this a concealability score of 4.2. This gun was just really big and really heavy, made it hard to conceal carry, and overall, it was just below average and not really that enjoyable. So moving on to comfort, the two biggest factors you notice with comfort is gonna be the size and weight, very similar to the actual concealability portion. But jumping into some of the more specific details, this gun is 9.5 inches wide by 8.5 inches tall, and coming in at 3 pounds, 10 ounces. This is technically similar to the PSA Dagger, but it feels a lot closer to the SIG P320 setup that I carried at the beginning of this series. I think what that boils down to is we are using the full-size grip on the Echelon here, and we also use the full-size grip on the P320. The PSA Dagger Compact obviously has a Glock 19 length frame, so it's only a 15 round capacity and it's about a 1/2 inch shorter. So size-wise, it's very similar to the SIG P320. Now, how did it actually feel to conceal carry this setup? I would say I really didn't notice it when standing. It was pretty comfortable. The size or weight really wasn't the issue with the Core Essentials belt and the jeans. However, when I switched to the joggers, like I mentioned earlier, there was some sagging. It made it a little bit more uncomfortable, but it really still wasn't that big of a deal. Where I noticed this gun was when sitting. And now we have a little bit of controversy. This is the first gun we've actually thrown an X300 on, and a lot of people carry the X300. This is really common over the last 2-3 years, is people running these really large weapon lights. However, I really don't think it's fair for this video. You know, this weapon light has impacted both the concealability and now the comfort score of this gun setup. If we were to throw a TLR1 on here, I think it would reduce a lot of weight and increase the comfort of this setup. This is one of the reasons why I really prefer the TLR1, is you're not gonna have nearly as much holster digging into your leg when you're sitting. There's probably a 3/8 of an inch difference between these two weapon lights. And that is incredibly noticeable when you're concealed carrying, especially Appendix. The more room you have right here, the better. This is right where your leg is gonna be when you're sitting, and it's just gonna dig in and be really uncomfortable if you have to sit for a long period of time, like if you have an office job and you're sitting at work. This would get really uncomfortable probably 15-20 minutes in. So I really don't know if it's fair to judge this gun so low when the weapon light is actually killing a lot of that comfort. So keep in mind, if you're gonna run the Echelon, I would probably throw a TLR1 on here. We just kind of wanted to experiment to see if the X300 is actually a viable carry light. And I kind of reaffirmed my suspicion. It's just kind of too big and the juice really isn't worth the squeeze when it comes to how expensive these lights are. And I would say I was probably right. If you're really trying to drive up the comfort of this build, obviously you could carry with the compact frame, or you could throw a Streamlight TLR7 on here. It's gonna end flush with the rail. It's not gonna give you as many lumens, but you're still gonna have a weapon mounted flashlight and you're gonna get a lot more comfort. So with all this being said, I really preferred carrying with the jeans and the Core Essentials belt. It just made this gun feel a lot less heavy. And with the joggers just kind of slouching, it just made it a little bit more uncomfortable than I would like. But when you look at the gun, I was actually concerned with the grip texture being as aggressive as it was. I thought it was gonna hurt my skin or irritate it. Really wasn't that noticeable. I was actually pleasantly surprised with carrying this gun that I didn't notice the grip texture rubbing up against my skin. The only thing I can conclude there is it's a rather smooth surface, and with how fine the grip texture is, it just kind of floated over my skin. I think if this would have been a little bit more coarse, you would have noticed it. So good job, Springfield. This is actually something I wasn't really expecting. So if you're somebody who sits a lot, specifically drives a lot, this setup might be a little bit more uncomfortable. Okay, so one thing that I think is abundantly clear about this setup is it is very long. Sitting down, I do feel some discomfort in my legs. If I had to sit like this for probably 15-20 minutes, it would start getting pretty uncomfortable. You know, just going down the road, driving for sub 10 minutes, no big deal at all. If you had to drive like this for an hour, you would probably have a really hard time being comfortable while driving. I personally prefer keeping my concealed carry gun on me rather than stowing it in the car. If there's an accident or I had to get out really fast, I prefer to just keep it right on me in the appendix position. I found that I did have to shift the entire setup to the left a little bit so that 12 o'clock is on the slide and not the pin in the T-Rex holster. And I also found that with the jeans, it's less comfortable than it is with the joggers. Obviously, you're just gonna have more comfort there. It's gonna be a lot easier to concealed carry this handgun just because the gun can kind of go wherever it wants. This Core Essentials belt is really pushing the entire setup into my waist and not making it super comfortable. So that's why I think the Arrowhead joggers are just a little bit more comfortable. One thing I will say is if you are wearing the joggers in this setup, you're definitely gonna extend the amount of time that's comfortable when driving. You can probably drive for 45 minutes to an hour with the setup, with the joggers, and still be comfortable. But at the end of the day, this is just a really big, heavy setup, and it's not gonna be the best when you're sitting down in this crunched up position. In a similar vein, talking about physical activity, if you have to bend down a lot, like picking up boxes or climbing ladders, anything where your legs come up to your chest, you're gonna have quite a bit of discomfort with this setup. Like I said, it is pretty long because of that X300, and it is also pretty wide, so it's gonna dig into your legs a lot if you're having to really crunch up. So looking at this entire setup, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 on comfort. You know, this is just a really large and heavy gun, so it's just not gonna do that great when you're trying to be comfortable when you're concealed carrying. For the last segment of this video, we're gonna talk about the effectiveness of the Springfield Echelon. I think this is where this gun kind of shines. This gun shoots really good. I have actually one of my fastest build drill times ever with this setup, and I probably wouldn't change too much about it. The base Echelon is awesome, but some of the accessories that really elevate it above a standard gun is gonna be this compensator. This compensator helps a lot with the vertical muzzle flip and the in-the-hand felt recoil. Today when shooting 115 grain through this thing, it was just so flat. It was so comfortable to shoot. I felt like I could stay on the dot the entire time while shooting. Speaking of the dot, this is a Holosun 508T. We run this dot a lot. This is probably on 10 or 15 of our guns. It's been kind of a workhorse of an optic. I really like a lot of things about it, and one of the things I really like about it is the different reticles you can choose. If you're somebody who prefers a circle with a dot, you can do that. If you prefer just a regular old dot, you can also do that as well. I really like the window size of this optic. It seems to be the perfect size for concealed carry and competition. You can see a lot, which is really good if you're also a newer shooter. Another thing that really allows you to be effective with the Echelon is gonna be this stock trigger. It has a really nice trigger shoe. The length of pull is really comfortable, and the trigger break and reset are pretty good. I found that this trigger just allows me to shoot really fast. For whatever reason, all the elements of this trigger are pretty much perfect for me. It kind of reminds me of the Glock Performance trigger meets a Shadow Systems trigger. Again, I think Springfield just took a lot of elements from a lot of really other good companies and kind of threw them in this gun. When it comes to the last element of effectiveness, I would say the magwell isn't great on the Springfield Echelon. I butched reloads in full winter gear. I butched reloads in a regular t-shirt. The mag release ejection is really positive, but what I found is this magwell is just really tiny, and I butched reloads with it. Comparing this to the SIG P320, a stock 320, I can perform a flawless reload probably 10 out of 10 times. And with the Springfield Echelon, it's probably 8 out of 10 times. So it's just not as good as some of the other guns on the market. Honestly, the Echelon just lends itself to shooting fast with the low bore axis, the really good trigger, and I really like the frame of this gun. It just kind of is a perfect storm to be a really effective gun. If you're interested in the Springfield Echelon, we just put out a video going completely over this gun. So if you want more information on this, check out the video down in the description. So like I mentioned earlier with recoil, this gun shoots incredibly flat. If I had to compare it to any build in our collection, it shoots a lot like the P320 TXG build we did. That is a very heavy setup with a very heavy frame. I would say this gun shoots just as good as that build. It shoots really flat. Something about this Springfield is it's just really smooth. And I think that plays a big role in the overall felt recoil and quality of this gun. And ultimately what's important about that is the flatter the gun shoots, the faster you can shoot, right? So the more time it takes for your dot to land back on target, that is just more time it takes to shoot. If you're trying to get that dot right back on target and have accurate shots, you can do that pretty quick with this gun. It just shoots really flat, and that's what makes it fast. And our last note about the effectiveness is gonna be the capacity. You can see here we have 37 rounds, a 17 round in the gun, and 20 rounds in the spare mag. I think this is a really good amount of ammo. It's very similar to ones we've done in the past. Usually most guns that I carry are 15 in the gun and 20 on the spare mag. And for me, it's kind of the round count I prefer to carry with. So when it comes to the effectiveness of this build, I'm gonna give it a 9.6 out of 10. As you guys can see, I really like how this gun shoots. I've already told you it's one of the fastest guns I can shoot with, which makes it one of the most effective guns that I have. And if you guys are keeping track, this is the highest score in effectiveness we've given, even over my favorite P320. So this brings the final score to 19.8 out of 30, which makes a lot of sense. This gun did really well in effectiveness. It's not really comfortable. It concealed okay, but not great. And I think if you really wanted to get this score up and make it a really good carry option, I would probably run the new Springfield Echelon compact frame. That gun was not out when we decided to get this holster and start this review process. But I think if you ran that frame with a TLR7 or a Streamlight TLR1, you would just get so much more comfort and concealability out of this setup. If you guys like this video, we'd appreciate a like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.